Okay, welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Excuse me, episode 491. I am your host. I am your host, Michael. Joining me is Daniel from Four Boxing News and the Inscriber. Um, what's going on, Daniel?
What's going on? What's going on, folks?
Usually we have Gail from nyfights.com. Excuse me, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but she's on vacation. So wherever you're at during your vacation, hope you're having fun. Have a drink for me and whatnot. But for those who want to follow Gail and chop it up with her on boxing and whatnot, you can do so. Gail Falkenthal on boxing on Twitter because I refuse to call it X, and YouTube as well because she has her own YouTube page. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Boxer Report, live YouTube show, podcast, etc. Talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you wish to email us, you can do so. P4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you check the description below for those who are checking us out on YouTube, you will see links to where to find Pound for Pound Box Report all over social media platforms, links to find us on Facebook, links to the YouTube channel, links to find us on Twitter as well. Um, because again, I refuse to call it X. Um, Pound for Pound Box Report. This particular episode and episodes for the foreseeable future. As I said, roughly a month or so ago, well, a few months ago back, as a matter of fact, Pound for Pound Box Report is an affiliate of both Navrod and Nazar Fragrances. I've been saying that for the past two episodes. Well, um, during the time off, Pound for Pound Box Report has a brand new sponsor. Shout out to Trill over at Harmony Fragrances, spelled with an X, but pronounced with an H, XARMONY. Harmony Parfumes. If you use the code Michael W15 or Mike 15, excuse me, you will get 15% off on all purchases, all fragrances over at Harmony Parfumes. And if you use the code Michael WP4P, you get 15% off on all fragrances and oils and body care products over at Nivrod and Nazar Fragrances. Also, we have a donate. Uh, if you wish to donate, let donation be the best nation. If you check again the description for those who are checking us out on YouTube, um, Cash Me, PayPal, donation links. Wouldn't matter if it's $1, $2, $5, whatever you want to contribute. The links are in the description. It'll help the overall production behind the scene. We'll be grateful for any kind of contribution that we receive. Um, let's get to these fights, Daniel. I'm not going to say it was a loaded weekend, but one of the more anticipated weekends or fight weeks of the year, headlined, of course, by Xander Zayas defending the unified junior middleweight belts against Jaron Ennis, who was a unified champion at 147 pounds, has moved up to 154. Fight took place in Brooklyn at Barclays, and Boots, how can I put this, Daniel? It was an exciting fight, um, but I don't know if I was overly impressed with Boots, and I'll explain why. Ennis, start, right? Put Zayas down twice in the first round, but in round three, um, I think for the first time, uh, Ennis was in a little bit of trouble as Zayas caught Boots with right hand left hook that put him in some trouble. Um, Made the fight very exciting. Shocked a lot of folks. For those who believe that Boots Ennis never got hit, well, he got hit in this fight for sure. But Boots, he responded and pretty much had his way throughout. Turned into a one-sided beatdown as far as I'm concerned. Stopped him in seven, right? Put him down later on in the fight. The reason why I say while it was an exciting fight for many, a lot of the fight fans, particularly the casual fans, right? I wasn't overly impressed, Daniel, because even though Ennis won and he dominated and stopped him in seven, he really should have stopped him in two or three, and he made the fight a little bit more difficult for himself. Put it this way: the reason he got hurt in round three is because he put himself in position in order to Zayas to land those punches. Um, I think the moment, the enormity of the moment and the atmosphere got to him. He was a bit reckless in there, a little bit too aggressive. He could have fought a cleaner fight. That's how I'll put it. I say all that to say he could have fought a cleaner fight, though the overall action was really exciting to the fans. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's gonna be the main duality when you look into this fight. When it comes to the action, this is one. This, even though I will agree, yeah, it was more like a once. It was more one sided than casual eyes would see, but it made us smart, particularly in that third round for fight of the year, because it's the type of fight that you want to see as far as when it comes to championships go. Now, obviously, the main difference is for with Boots is that he knows how to land punches. It got to the point where I think I'm gonna steal this from somebody on Twitter, where it literally felt like his left hook or his left glove probably had a magnet directly tied to Zayas' chin, because he could not miss landing that shot, and along with uppercuts. The main issue, unfortunately, is what Boots does is he will land you with combinations. He'll box you, he'll try to bully you, but he will do so in a manner that leaves him pretty open to get countered. And he's got countered before in previous fights, but he's never really gotten as hurt as he was in that third round with Zayas. But even then, he recovered well enough where he was still able to dictate the fight throughout. Now, like I said, I'm not gonna go as far as some people said, like looking at the fight in hindsight, as far as saying that third round was Hagler Hearn-esque or compare it to it. But it does give you that sensation. It gives you that sense of excitement. That's luckily what this fight did. And I'm also really, really glad that Zayas' corner stepped in when they did. Because sometimes you're going to have to do that. Like, as a fight corner, I know you want to root for fight. I know you want to back him up. I know you want him to go out in their shield. But at a certain point, you had to realize that it was becoming target practice for Boots. And outside of a miracle shot, Zayas wasn't going to be able to pull out that fight. So right when he got hurt enough, they did the right thing. They had the fight stopped. And like I said, nothing lost on Xander Zayas' part. Let's get that right. Nothing is lost on it. He fought his heart out. He didn't have to take this fight. He could have easily gone for a mandatory or an easier voluntary defense, but he stepped up to a guy that has been in the periphery of the pound for pound conversation for the past, I would probably say, almost a little bit more than a half decade. And now Boots is walking to the party.
Indeed. To your last couple of points, Zayas, I agree, he didn't have to take that fight, right? But he kind of made the initiative for this to happen. Um, there are other fighters, there are other fights that Boots wanted at 154. For one reason or another, it didn't happen. wink, wink, nod, nod, Virgil Ortiz, right? Who had a whole lot to say after the fight, right? But in the end, we knew, Daniel, that going into this fight, Jaron Ennis was the more talented fighter. He was the more skilled fighter. He was the more powerful fighter. And ultimately, that's what he proved. Now, let's talk post fight briefly. I mentioned Ortiz, right? During the post fight, they was asking about a potential fight with Ortiz and Boots. Um, it looks like Ortiz is going to has made amends with Golden Boy. Is going to fight, sign basically a 3-year extension. Virgil Ortiz went on record after the fight on Twitter saying that he would stop Boots. So that was kind of the whole thing happening in the immediacy following the fight. But right, uh, earlier today, really in the hours leading up to this recording, this live episode, excuse me, there's been word that negotiations are underway for a fight between um, Ennis and and um, Sebastian Fundora, right? The Towering Inferno, or as I like to call him, the Stork of boxing. Um, Tell me I am wrong for wanting to see a fight between Ennis and Fundora before wanting to see a fight between Ennis and Ortiz. I think it's a fascinating matchup, right? Um, it looks like Fundora is starting to fight, is starting to use his height more, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's starting to use his jab more, his physical attributes. Um, that height, that length versus the skill and the natural speed and talent of Ennis, I think that has the potential to be one of the better fights in boxing. Nothing against Ortiz, but he could have fought Boots. Boots wanted that fight, and like I said, because of situations here or there, it didn't happen. And he's been out of the ring a year. Fundora Ennis has continued to fight, has stayed active. As far as I'm concerned, he Ortiz is not in position to fight Ennis because of the activity. So why not Boots and Fundora fight, strike while the iron is hot? To me, that fight determines the best fighter at 154 pounds.
It's a it's an interesting situation when you think about it because unfortunately, like I mentioned, these Boots has been in that periphery of the pound for pound conversation for more than half the decade. And interesting enough, that is almost exactly the same amount of time as him and Virgil have been circling each other for a potential fight. And unfortunately, like I said, due to contractual issues and obviously possible Zuffa interference, you had delays on that. But I think Virgil realized that he probably wasn't going to be able to get out of the contract with Golden Boy as easily as he thought he would. So it's easier to make amends. And interestingly enough, now Boots puts himself in a fight that's very interesting. Yes, because while Fundora has been improving as far as using a reach, using his height in his fights, we also know that Fundora, if you give him an opportunity, he's just going to start swinging. He's just going to go straight to the firefight. And that has cost him in this career. One thing that we know is that Fundora can be cracked. So if you're Boots, you're looking at it like, okay, I could add the WBC belt to this and make myself the real top player in this division. So if I want to make a fight with Virgil, I'm the clear A side. And I agree, Virgil has to get a bit more active when it comes into his career. I don't know what advice that he got that told him you can try to get out of this Golden Boy contract a lot easier. Probably not as much as he thought he was going to. But at the end of the day, things have to move. You have to push things forward. And with Boots, you have to keep this momentum going. If you don't have the momentum going, then you have a situation where you're going to get stuck in a loop. And quite frankly, 154, you can't afford that. At 154, 160, you can't afford it because as far as like marquee players, those divisions are wide open.
Sit idle or get left behind, and Ennis is smart for not just taking this fight with Zayas. He won, and now you're already hearing stuff about his next fight um, against a guy, the guy who a lot of people feel if Ennis is not the best at 154 pounds, um, people think that Fundora is Fundora. He says he wants to fight the best of the best. We all know that Boots says he wants all comers at 154 pounds. Smart move by all comers involved. Keep the keep the momentum going, as you said, Daniel, when it comes to Ennis. And if the fight gets made, I love to see it. I welcome it. I'm all here for it. On the undercard of Zayas and Ennis, couple of fights I want to mention. Ben Whittaker making his U.S. debut against Richard Rivera. Stopped him. Whittaker stopped Rivera in round two, right? I think the stoppage was a little bit early, in my personal opinion. Okay, Whittaker, he made his U.S. debut. He got that out the way. Easy win. The question is for me, Daniel, when is this dude going to fight someone who can really test him? Um, it's time for him. It's time for him in Matchroom to move on to better competition. It's time for him in Matchroom to move. It's time for Matchroom to put him in world title contention, maybe a world title eliminator. Whitaker says in 2027 he's going to be a world champion. Well, I love to see moves be made to put him in a position for a world title fight. The dude is talented, right? He gets nothing at this point, other than PR perspective, other than good PR and whatnot from this fight. Yeah. This kind of opposition, it does nothing for his career. Um, he deserves more, and Whitaker should want more for himself.
Yeah, that was a situation where, okay, you knew what this fight was about. You saw it from the first round that Whitaker was levels above skill wise from Rivera. And while you're making a debut like I said, you're a British fighter, you're making a debut in the US. So you want to get yourself known, you want to get yourself acclimated with the American fans. You also have to give them something they can chew in that manner. Because like I said, Rivera, he knows why he was there, and he completed his mission at that point. This fight, like unfortunately, like I said, unless like you just saw Ben Whitaker for the first time, doesn't really do anything if you've been watching his career. Eddie, I agree. Eddie has to get him now ready for contention. You can tell that dude's ready. You can tell that he's hungry enough to do it. Take the risk because you're going to need to at some point, because you don't want to make the same mistake that Top Rank made when they were handling Edgar Berlanga. They did make the mistake of feeding him pretty much mediocre competition in the build-up on it, and they did it too long, and they wound up regressing Berlanga's career pretty much irreparably. You don't want to do that
But
with somebody
Whittaker is
that
more.
is a
But
smirker.
Whittaker is more style than Berlinger. He's a more talented fighter than Berlinger.
Yeah,
Berlinger is just all hype and mouth.
yeah. But you could have either you could have found that out a little bit faster, or you may have built him up a little bit better, and he probably would have been a better fighter to come out of it rather than what he unfortunately turned out to be. That's the sad part of it. But you have to get on it now because unfortunately, like I said, how many times have we seen fighters not be ready when the big time comes, when they actually get good competition, and all the building, all the issues as far as trying to keep him on a good track go out the window.
I mean, he's closing. What is it? 28, 29 now. Enough is enough. How does it look? You talking about you talking about you going to take over the division. You're obviously talented, but you still you itching in on you closing on 30 years old, and you haven't made any significant moves. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. He's too good to be fighting this kind of competition. Let's see how good he is. Put him in a position for a world title eliminator. He says he wants to be champion, and he's going to be a world champion in 2027. I love to see him. Put him in a position where he could fight a Bivol or Benavidez at 175 pounds. Point blank. Period. Another fight on this card, Daniel, is Emiliano Vargas, right? Um, what was it? Stoppage win over um, Bryce Mills. I can't take the credit for this. I can't remember who said it, but while scouring boxing Twitter, right? Someone said that Vargas is what Golden Boy wanted Ryan Garcia to be, but it's not. Not. I agree 100%, and I say that in this aspect, Daniel. Um, when you look at Vargas, not just himself in the ring, but how he carries himself outside the ring. Dude is a smooth cat, man. Um, he is not a world champion, but he carries himself like a pro's pro. He's more mature than what Ryan Garcia could ever be. Um, and he's mature, Vargas, in a way without being pretentious or coming off as fake. And we're starting to see the style outside of the ring. You're seeing hints that there could be substance inside of the ring. I think if he continues at this pace, if he continues to prove, um, and that they throw a little bit more meat on the bone in terms of competition, he has the talent and he has that it factor. I could see Vargas being the world champion. I'm at 140 pounds, or maybe even 147, depends on how he grows physically, in another 18 to 24 months. I'm impressed by the entire package of Vargas, who he is and what he's becoming as a fighter.
Yeah, that's the one thing that Vargas does have, because I do agree with the sentiment that he is probably what Golden Boy wanted Ryan to be, but he has the benefit of seeing how badly Ryan has fucked up as far as for both in ring and outside the ring. And good fighters tend to learn those lessons, and they start acting accordingly to make sure that they don't make those mistakes. And when it goes into this fight, he did everything perfectly. Like Mills was food, straight food. And like, so, okay, I can get the debate for the first knockdown. I can get that debate. But the rest of the knockdowns, yeah, you can't really do much. The only thing that probably marred the fight in that sense was how the fight was stopped. because even though like everybody could see that this fight was only probably going to end with a knockout if the referee didn't step in, a knockout for Vargas. The way he jumped in while they were still exchanging and exchanging fairly well, it kind of did mar the victory a little bit in some people. But Vargas has the tools. Vargas has, you can tell he's at least taken a little bit of PR training. He knows what to say. He knows how to fight. And he knows that he can't afford to do the things that other fighters have done around his weight class recently that ultimately lead to ruin. Because you mentioned you mentioned one bad spectrum was Ryan Garcia. Unfortunately, luckily, Ryan Garcia is at least somewhat in a high level as far as probably getting money out the gate. The other mistake that you don't want to make when it comes to a fighter, unfortunately, in this weight class, or at least around it, is sadly Adrian Broner. Somebody who was thought of actually being involved, probably being an actual successor to Floyd, and now he's one of the unfortunately saddest cautionary tales you can have in the sport. I don't think Vargas is going to get that. I would say more closer to 18 months that he'll probably have a belt. And it'll probably be at 140 pounds. It does look like he can still make the weight fairly comfortably. And now we just got to worry about like I said, hopefully that his activity stays there.
The comparisons and with Ryan Garcia, and you talked about how Emiliano has learned from Ryan Garcia's faults. And I think another person we have to put into this discussion about Emiliano is his dad, right? Fernando Vargas, former champion at 154 pounds, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. They have an interesting relationship. And Fernando, throughout his career, particularly outside the ring, had his own demons, right? Particularly when it came to uh, alcohol abuse. Um, I would think that the son has learned a lot from the faults of the father, and he's put all of that together, and basically saying, no matter how far it goes in this boxing game, I respect what my dad and did whatnot, but I'm not going to do what he did in terms of the lack of professionalism that at times Fernando displayed, um, be it the alcohol abuse or being the fact that he was, let's face it, a hothead at certain times of his career. I think that's part of the package as well when it comes to Emiliano and how he carries himself. And as a point of order, um, while they do love each other, they don't always get along uh, because of that. And Emiliano has made that perfectly clear during a series of interviews. So um, exciting. Let's keep an eye on Emiliano Vargas. Let's see how far this goes. Let's move on to some news here, Daniel. And kind of talked about Boots and Fedora, but there was a lot of interesting news that came out of Boots and Zayas, that fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is that Teofimo Lopez, who has not been in the ring since getting thoroughly outboxed by Shakur Stevenson earlier this year in February, looks like he's in talks to fight Rolly Romero. Your reaction?
Well, okay. First, like I want to add something to when it comes to luckily with Fernando Vargas. Uh, One good thing I love about Fernando Vargas as a trainer, he's an honest trainer. He's not there to glaze his kids. He's willing to tell you when they're wrong, if they're messing up, or I just say like just be honest about hey, they may not be fully ready yet. He's at least honest in that regard, luckily. And that's something that you learn over time by learning your own mistakes. I want to leave it there. But okay, for Teofimo, this is probably a, as far as drawing power, a good cutback fight, because you know that Rolly's gonna do whatever he can to get everything moving, to get the crowd going in the area, and try to hype up this fight as much as he can. And skill wise, like I said, skill wise, this should be easy for Teofimo. It's Rolly. This, even though he has a belt, it is still the same guy that was fighting around when Tank was fighting him. Granted, Tank was losing to him, but he's still the same guy. So it's a good comeback fight from a drawing power standpoint. It gets him in the
He's
conversation.
the same guy who got absolutely blitzed by Pitbull Cruz.
Yeah, that's it's the same thing. Like, you haven't seen him be that improved at all. So I can understand it. And I'm just me. Yeah, it. I I think I think we'll probably get that fight early 2027. Like, you have to give Virgil probably at least one tune-up fight while Boots and Fundora fight. And like I mentioned, Fundora, even though he's learning to use his height, he's learning to use his reach, can easily get into a firefight, and he has already shown he can be rocked.
To our previous discussion about regarding Boots and um, Ortiz, it's just me. 72 says he still wants to see Boots and Ortiz. I get it. I understand why. And if Ennis fights the way that if Ennis fights Ortiz the way that he fought Zayas, Ortiz has a shot, a more than decent shot, because we now seen that you can hurt Boots, and aggressive Boots Ennis can be hit, right? Um, if Ennis is in boxing mode, I just don't see Ortiz beating him because of the footwork, because of the hand speed, because of the angles that Ennis can create, and the thing about, but again, if somehow Ennis fights stupid as he did in parts of this fight against Zayas, Ortiz can get to him with body punches, and Ortiz has some power as well. But it all depends if that fight will happen. Would be in terms of Ortiz's, in terms of Boots, his mind state, and how he wants to approach this fight. Appreciate your comments. It's just you, me, 7-2. And if you haven't done so, please hit that like button and subscribe. In terms of this fight, potential fight between Teofimo and Rolly, I get what you're saying. And even as I chimed in by saying that this is the same Rolly who got destroyed by Pitbull Cruz. Yeah, I agree with that. On paper, Teofimo should have his way. Rolly, he's aggressive. He basically, there's not much to his game. But when it comes to Teofimo, I don't trust the dude mentally. I cannot get that Sandor Martin fight out of my head, where afterwards he was openly questioning himself. And he was so vulnerable that he did it on camera. Now, he tried to fake the funk and and say and whatnot and try to make an excuse for it. But we as boxing fans, we know what it is, and we saw what we saw. Um, and if Rolly can have the same kind of discipline, if you will, that we saw in parts of the fight against Tank, the same kind of discipline and the same kind of jab that we saw throughout the fight against Ryan Garcia, he has a shot against Teofimo. But on balance, I agree with you. Teofimo, um, he relies on athleticism, but he's more athletic than Rolly. He's quicker than Rolly. He's faster than Rolly. That would make the difference in that potential fight. Now, we also talk, excuse me, um, in terms of the domino effects, if you will, from that fight, the news that came through that from the fight against from Boots and Zayas, Olexandr Uysk, right? What was it? The day before that, the week of that fight, he announces that he's vacating the heavyweight belts. During the broadcast, Eddie Hearn said that he believes that Usyk is going to fight Deontay Wilder. Earlier today, we're hearing that Usyk is contemplating a fight against Wilder or, wait for it, Jon Jones, UFC. What's going on here with Usyk, Daniel?
Okay, now there is a context to this. You can say that there's two sides of it. Like the side that people have been trying to come into it is, unfortunately, it's like, oh, Usyk is ducking who he was ducking his WBC mandatory. He's getting old. The fight with the Verhoeven with the kickboxer showed that he's slipping. He's not what he was. So we just leave him before he gets beat. I'm not one of those people. I think Usyk is still the top of the division and the standard for the division. But Usyk is also smart enough to know that, unfortunately, fighting mandatories doesn't get you the money that you saw that Netflix was willing to pay for that fight, Verhoeven. And one thing also, he said it in there, he doesn't want to hold the division hostage, in a sense of letting the young guys try to fight for those championships, fighting that generation, because he's beaten almost pretty. The only person that would be left is Wilder. He's effectively beaten everybody from his era when it comes to heavyweight fights. And outside of Wilder, a rematch with Joshua wouldn't do anything. If anything, it would break Joshua's psyche almost permanently. Same thing with Tyson Fury. So I could see that situation going like, I'd rather not hold the division, but I know I can still make the money fights that I want to make without having the titles tied in. I could think we could probably call this like the Floyd Mayweather exhibition effect. But the other part of this, unfortunately, that's tied in is, you just mentioned it, a potential fight with Jon Jones. Now, obviously, this screams of Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou.
But Jon Jones has an arthritic hip. Why?
Yeah. But unfortunately, the bad thing about it is, unfortunately, Jon Jones still has a good amount of name recognition. But unfortunately, when you think about it, a fight with Jon Jones can really legitimately only happen by signing with Dana White.
And that's the other side of all of this, Daniel, is that There continue to be rumors that Usyk is on the verge of signing a deal with Zuffa. Doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense since he's supposedly going to have one more for what, one fight, and then supposedly going to retire. But okay,
Well, that's the main thing. Like he's just get. It's a situation where okay, if it's just going to be for like a big money fight, obviously, like I said, Jon Jones, they could cobble up the money for it. You can't. You could probably convince Turkey to do it, especially unfortunately with his current situation as far as brain cancer. But at the same time, you don't gain anything legacy wise by fighting somebody like Jon Jones. Like you mentioned, has an arthritic hip. And obviously doesn't have probably the level of power that somebody like Ngannou has. At heavyweight. That's the key part. At heavyweight. People will point obviously to, but Ngannou was able to land against Fury. Yes, he was able to land against a Tyson Fury that did not take the fight seriously.
that part.
Mm-hmm. So
Go ahead.
that is no, I was about to say. So if you're trying to compare it to that, I'm sorry, you're not going to. It just depends what he wants to do. Hopefully, if it's going to be an exhibition, in a sense of the fact, if he just wants to complete the Infinity Stone of the fighters that he's beaten in this era, of his era, he gives a fight to Wilder. We know it doesn't mean anything. We know obviously that Wilder is not anywhere close to what he would have been at his best, which sadly is still when he first won the belt against Romain Stabur. So, and it could happen. Like I said, it's not surprising. It just depends which direction that they go.
We'll keep you updated, but the domino effect from Usyk deciding to relinquish the belts at heavyweight is that Ajik Kabiel, who you kind of mentioned during your earlier response to the news, there are some who felt that Usyk didn't want to fight with Kabiel. I can understand that argument because Kabiel has long been deserving of a world title fight, right? Kabiel was named full WBC champion, and Daniel, uh, what could happen as well is another scenario when it comes to the IBF. Um, Moses Atuma is going to fight Filip Hrgovic on the 29th of August, right? Um, if things go according to plan, the winner of that would fight Frank Sanchez for the vacant IBF belt. So the dominoes of that, I'm not mad at that because Atuma and Hrgovic is an interesting fight. Um, Finally, Atuma's getting tested, quote unquote, uh, against a Hrgovic who's, I think, limited but tough and can hit, right? And he goes from there and fighting Frank Sanchez. And there's some out there, kind of myself included, who think that from a skill perspective, Sanchez would be a tougher test for Atuma than Hrgovic would. Um, Assuming that Sanchez isn't old or hasn't aged, um, I wouldn't mind seeing a fight between Sanchez and Atuma. How Atuma would deal with the speed and the boxing ability of Frank Sanchez. That would be an interesting scrap for as I'm concerned. But that's the scenario that could play out as far as the IBF is concerned. Um, any other boxing news? Any other boxing news? Um, I'll go to you, Daniel. Any other boxing news that you've been hearing before we move on to preview some fights that's going to happen on the 4th of July?
Let me
Oh,
take
I
a
got
look.
one. Oh, I got one. I got one. Excuse me. I got one. we wasn't on last week, but it would turn out to be a farce of a boxing card. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before. Oscar Collazo scored an easy win over a guy who I like to call a fighter who I like to put in the category of Bob Hope's cousin, No Hope. So he beat a No Hoper, and it stopped him easily at a fight. It ended up being at flyweight, right? In the aftermath,
Man, I've seen the
Collazo said that
mic a
he
little
wants to
bit,
move
folks.
up in the
You broke up a
after.
little bit, Mike. Like you, nothing came out of what you were saying before.
Okay, let me go back again because okay. I had some technical issues. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before. It would turn out to be a farce of a boxing event. Oscar Collazo made easy work of a guy who I like to put in the category of Bob Hope's cousin, No Hope, right? Name not even worth being mentioning. The key point is that Oscar Collazo now, who is unified champion at 105, wants to move up at 1 to 112 and fight unified flyweight champion Richard Sandoval. So for those who do not know, or who those hardcore heads who may remember, Sandoval was the guy who upset Kenshiro Taraji to be win those flyweight belts. Thoughts on it seems like Collazo may be ending this pursuit of becoming undisputed at 105 to move up to 112 pounds.
It's probably a smarter play because obviously you can tell, even though he's been making the weight, it's becoming harder for him to maintain that weight of 105. And we know that that's unfortunately, one of the weight divisions that it's very, very hard to fully unify to get undisputed. Because either people can't stay long in the division, obviously, because they can't make the weight, or the ones that do, they will safeguard themselves as much as they can in the markets, in the areas of the world that they can, and pretty much just keep the belts at bay. This drastic of a jump, like now, folks, like I remember, people think, oh, 7 pounds, it's not worth much. When it comes to boxing, when it comes into that, yes, it is drastic. When it comes to the smaller weight classes, that wouldn't be a bad scrap. That would not be a bad scrap in the end. And what it does is it does put Golasso close to one of the glamorous divisions in the smaller weight classes. And not only that, depending on what can happen, it can put him very, very close to one Bam Rodriguez. And if you put yourself that close to Bam, you instantly rekindle Mexico versus Puerto Rico. Easily.
Early prediction: if that fight happens, Collazo beats him. Collazo beats him. I covered that fight between Sandoval and Kenshiro for Three Kings Boxing when that fight happened between Kenshiro and Sandoval July of last year, right? Shout out to everyone over at threekingsboxing.com, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. 2K, the man behind Three Kings, Bo, senior writer, head of media relations, who you heard on this podcast numerous times. Shout out to the other senior writer, Bakari. Shout out to the contributors behind the scenes. I covered that fight. The result of that fight was more of Kenshiro overlooking Sandoval than anything special that Sandoval did in the ring, right? Sandoval is not the best fighter at 112 pounds. He's not. I would rank um, Olaskawaga over him. I think Olaskawaga is more explosive than Sandoval. I think if Olaskawaga and Sandoval were to win, Olaskawaga would not only win, but uh, possibly knock him out. Right? Collazo was a big, big straw weight, 112 pounds. He came into that last fight weighing what 110 and a half, and he still looked like he didn't have an ounce of fat on him. Could easily move up. And as an aside, not only do I think Olaskawaga is better than Sandoval, I think that uh, one of your favorite fighters, Daniel, um, Masamichi Yubuki, is better than him as well. Um, Back to Collazo, big for a flyweight, can easily move up to 112 pounds. Dare I say he would be more explosive, just as explosive at 112 than the Sandoval is, who I think is a decent puncher, but is not a great puncher. I don't see anything that would be able that Sandoval could do to hold him off of Collazo. I think Collazo beats Richard Sandoval all day. And I think that's what Golden Boy is banking on, and that's why they want to fight him more than fight someone like an Olas Kawaga, um, one of the more explosive fighters in the boxing lower weight divisions, or someone like Ibuki, um, who has one of the best jabs in the sport, and he can punch like hell too, particularly at that lower weight.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it's a very, very smart move for them to do. And like I said, Collazo can make that weight. He can make that weight, and it doesn't look like it's going to be that much strain on his body, even though, like I mentioned, it is a big jump when you think about it when it comes to boxing in the lower weight classes. But there's a plan there. Like I said, they can get close to Bam at that point. And one thing that boxing really does need, particularly something in lower weight classes, you need that Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry rekindled in a sense.
Absolutely. So I want to make note of that, particularly since we were off last week. Now let's move on to some fights here that's going to happen this weekend. Again, it's going to be boxing on July 4th, notably in Cleveland on the zone. I love this. I love this. The fact this card is going to be airing on both the zone um, for the streaming world as well as on TNT for the network cable broadcasting world. Right. And get to the main event in a bit, but let's start with the fight between Shushu Carrington, Daniel, and Rene Palacios. Carrington making, I believe, the first defense of the featherweight belt WBC version. Won that belt earlier this year, right? Now, Carrington, he's been talking a lot about wanting to fight Naoya Inoue when Inoue eventually moves up from 122 to 126. Inoue will move up um, to featherweight in 2027. At this point, fighting a guy in Palacios, on balance, he should beat him. We'll kind of tease what happens should he win. But for me, should Carrington win, I don't think Inoue is the guy who he should target, because there's another fighter at 126 pounds that I think if Shushu ever will get in the ring with, will give Shushu Carrington the fight of his life. We'll talk about that should Shushu win next week. But your thoughts first and foremost on this upcoming title defense against Palacios.
It should be a good defense when it comes to Shushu. It is one of the things that you want to do when you want to showcase a fight, particularly when the first championship. I don't really think Shushu's going to have much of an issue right now when it comes to this fight. I just hope that he's not looking too far ahead, because that's the main thing that can catch you in this sport. You look too far ahead, and then you unfortunately lose the sight of what's in front of you. But I think obviously with celebration being July 4th, with it the situation mean that it's probably going to be the actual best celebration that you can have in this country, because it doesn't look like what's being planned in DC for July 4th. It's going to be very exciting, but it should be a good
Absolutely
showcase.
stupid to have that kind of event. I get why, but it's absolutely stupid when the temperature is supposed to be over 100 plus degrees. But that's another discussion for another topic for another day. It's not even boxing related. Let's just say,
Yeah,
do I hope it does well? No, I do not.
yeah. That's all I'm going to say when it comes to that subject. But us, if we're gonna go gaudy, unfortunately, it is the WBC. We also do know that the WBC is planning to have another commemorative belt be made for this card. And please, Mauricio, don't charge a sanctioning fee for that belt. We've seen it. It doesn't really look good.
I'll just say that I agree, but you're talking about the WBC and Suleiman here, so he'll charge something for that. And then let's just leave it at that. The main event here is Abdullah Mason coming off of an exciting win over Sam Noakes to become WBO lightweight champion. I think that Mason is the youngest world champion currently in this sport. 21, I think he is. Returning homecoming defense in Cleveland, fighting Albert Bell, who was a late substitute for Joel Cordina, who was forced to withdraw due to visa issues, quote unquote, tied to the fact that Cordina was charged with assault for an incident that happened earlier this year. I think in April when he was caught. This video has surfaced that he was basically beat up someone in the middle of the street who I guess was a little bit too mouthy, and because of that, he was forced to withdraw from the fight. Instead, he's fighting a guy by the name of Albert Bell, undefeated, doesn't have many knockouts on his record, and technically he is ranked, Daniel. But do I think that he will have enough to beat Mason, particularly on this late notice? No.
Yeah,
Mason is younger. Mason has more skill. And what's the old adage, Daniel, that a guy becomes 25% better once he becomes a world champion? I think that will be the case here. Um, the rough patches that we saw in his win over Noakes, that will not be exposed in this fight against Bell. Um, homecoming homecoming uh, defense for Mason. I think this is an opportunity to look good and very good in his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio.
yeah. Obviously, like I said, the late substitution. Interesting enough, because we didn't talk about the Kalas situation. Uh, that was also a late substitution based visa issues because the original opponent couldn't get a visa out of the Philippines. And now in this situation, you had the situation again. Now, I was actually looking forward to this fight when it came to Cordina, because Cordina is a good test for Mason. He would have been former world
Yeah,
champion. Yeah,
Cordina could
former.
box.
Yeah,
I thought Cordina could give Mason some problems here. I'm still unsure why. Okay, I get the reason why, but that incident took place in April. Um, how can I put this way? Put it this way: if this was before this current administration were in office, would Cordina would they have blocked Cordina from this fight? No, but I think because of issues, quote unquote, uh, this is being Cordina is being denied this opportunity now.
Yeah.
I think there have been similar incidents with fighters where they have been allowed to fight for a world title. I get the assault charge, but there have been fighters who face far worse than what Cordina is, but they have been allowed to fight. Cordina's being blocked. Yeah, I don't know if I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. It's unfortunately, it's a situation, honestly, like it's the same thing as the situation Colosso. It's a situation that should have been handled well beforehand. But unfortunately, it looks like they waited until the last minute to do so, which really sucks for Mason, unfortunately, because like I said, Cordina was going to be a good test. Not only could he box, he is a former champion himself.
Two-time world
So,
champion, Daniel.
yeah. So he knows what it takes to win the belt.
Right.
And he knows how to pull.
He knows how to box and he has the experience.
Yeah. And not only that, he knows pretty well how to fight from behind. He has proven, I think it was in the first time he already won the belt, 130 IBF, where he was able to pull it off. I think we're being behind on the cards and wound up winning it in his native Wales, I believe. So there's that. So you go from that into somebody that, yes, they are ranked on paper, but they really haven't shown that they're worthy enough to get put into that title picture. And unfortunately, you still have to give the warning, though. Abdullah Mason, yeah, he's very young. He's in a division that he can become the kingpin of fairly easily because he has the youth to do it. But even now, you still don't want to look too far ahead. And it could be a lot easier to do that when you're that young. So even though, yeah, you do not get an opportunity to really get tested the way most people thought you were going to get tested, you still had to keep your eye on the ball. This should not just be a straight showcase, which obviously in your hometown, in your home region for Abdullah Mason, it's the 4th of July. Do just for the, I'm going to say this as plainly as possible. Just for the love of God, do not do what Keyshawn Davis did in a homecoming fight. Please
and
do
miss
not do
weight.
that.
That's what you're referring to.
Yep. Like, do not do that. And do not put in a lackluster performance, too, after missing weight.
Right. Here's the thing, though, Daniel. I think that Mason's inner circle is better than Keyshawn. I think his belief system, I think he's more disciplined in large part due to his faith. For those who do not know, Mason is Muslim, and I think that plays a part, as well as his family, as well as those around him. They're not going to let him participate or engage in the foolishness that we've seen from Keyshawn Davis. So I don't think that will be an issue with him, despite his youth.
All I'm going to say is let's hope so. Let's hope so. But this should be a showcase fight now at this point. Now, I do hope that later on in the year, because Abdullah Mason is young enough to not have the excuse that, oh, he has to rest between fights. He's young enough where he should be fighting 4 times a year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
So if you do this, and like I said, even though, yeah, it's still his own behavior, and he still had to make the actions. You're right. Like there were a lot of fighters that faced worse situations that were able to get visas, were able to get to push the fight spirit through. Do give Joe Cordina the shot that you were offering him, even if it means maybe you have to go to Wales to do it.
Right.
Like I said, give that man that opportunity because that would have been a really, really good test.
We'll dive into this more. Hopefully next week. Should Mason win? What is it? July coming up. He should be back in the ring October, November, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
assuming he doesn't suffer too much damage, and I will agree with you. And I think he should give, if everything is fair, the next fight should be against Cordina. But we will talk about that on another, hopefully on a future episode, and then we will end things on that note. I want to thank Just Me for commenting during the live episode. If you're checking us out on YouTube, again, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you'll get notification for future episodes as well as upcoming shorts for each particular episode. As I said earlier in the show, Gail is not with us this week because she is on vacation. But if you want to talk boxing with Gail, you can do so on Twitter at here as well as on YouTube. Gail Falcon Boxing. She has her own YouTube channel where she discusses boxing, does a lot of dope interviews with a lot of fighters and managers and promoters and those insiders, if you will, within the sport, writers, and et cetera, et cetera. I'll go to you, Daniel. Again, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, as SummerSlam, we're in the SummerSlam era when it comes to WWE. For those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, who landed a pretty significant acquisition during our time off. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes,
Because
folks.
y'all got Mr. Giannis now.
Yep. Yep. And we'll see what other moves they make in this situation. Like Wiggins, like I said, Andrew Wiggins re-signed for a couple of years. Makes it a very interesting cap situation. But we may lose Norm Powell, but everything depends on what they do, because I don't think Pat's done dealing yet. But definitely catch me on Rocks99 on Twitter. Yeah, I'll say it. Fuck you, Elon. I'll never call it X. There, but it's the same socials, whether it's Blue Sky, Counter Social, Threads. It's the names there. Rocks99. Definitely catch me on there. And fuck, like I said, we're almost already at the halfway point of the year. It has been so far a really, really fun year when it comes to covering boxing. Obviously, like I said, we just had a mid-year fight of the year candidate, round of the year candidate at least, come in with Boots versus Zayas, and hopefully now we start to get the rest of the year. We get everything rolling. We got some interesting fights really coming up. For example, like I said, in September, it was going to be Canelo facing somebody that most people didn't think they were going to face.
That fight has been pushed back to October, actually, Daniel. I should have mentioned that. And I should also mention this: Clarissa Shields is returning to the ring, and she's going back down to 160 pounds. So, yeah, that part.
Yeah, like I said, it's an exciting time to have boxing be involved. And like you mentioned it, this weekend, and this is not a one-off, folks. You're not only going to have boxing a card on the zone, you're going to have it simultaneously too on TNT. And they have a very good young crew coming in. They're not having just a lot of retreads coming into it. And the fact remains that this is now going to be a monthly thing. Now, whether unfortunately it stays a monthly thing after the Paramount deal gets officially done, hopefully. But that means, like I said, we're going to have boxing back on network television. Maybe this can become technically like an heir to ESPN's Friday Night Fights, hopefully. and we'll see where it goes. But let's try to build it up, folks. Let's try to build it up.
Indeed, indeed. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance, colognes, all things smell good, you can do so on X. What the fuck? Twitter, excuse me. On Brother JR at Brother JR76. You can also do so on IG and Blue Sky Brother JRSC. And as I said early in the show, because my bad, I messed around and called it X. When I'm with Daniel, I refuse to call it X. It's Twitter all day. As I said earlier in the show, pound for pound boxing report during our time off gained another sponsor, if you will. Previously affiliates with Nazar and Navrod Fragrances. Now Harmony Parfumes is signed on. Again, if you check those codes, Michael WP4P, you can get 15% off on all colognes, fragrances, body care products over at Navrod and Nazar, and you can use the code Mike15 for 15% off on all things from Harmony Perfumes. Again, Harmony is spelled with an X, but it's pronounced Harmony, like it's spelled with an H. On the next episode, we will do a recap of the card in Cleveland. It may be a brief episode because there's nothing really happening of note on the weekend of July 11th. We will do a recap of Abdullah Mason's first title defense of the WBO lightweight strap against Albert Bell. Bruce Carrington, his first title defense of the WBC featherweight belt against Rene Palacios. We may also talk about Deontay Johnson, who's fighting on that same card, and any news or interesting thing that's going to happen for the week, or the interesting fights that may pop up on the weekend of the 11th. Again, for Gail, again, who's not with us this week on vacation, hope to have her back next week or on a future episode. For Daniel LaFour, Boxing News and the Inscriber, I am your host, Michael. This has been episode 491 of Pound for Pound Box Report. We'll see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night. And before I officially sign off, thoughts and prayers for fans of the NFL, for those of for Chris Johnson, running back, former outstanding running back for the Tennessee Titans. News came down today that he announced that he is suffering from ALS at the young age of 39. Spectacular career with the Tennessee Titans, 2,000-yard season. Formerly held the record for the fastest 40 at the NFL Combine. That news was announced earlier today, I think on the ABC morning show with Michael Strahan. So my heart goes out to him and his family. So I want to acknowledge his situation again. Episode 491 of Pound for Pound Boxing. For Daniel, for Gil, who's not here with us this evening, I'm your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time.